Chargers finished 11-6 in 2025, and the season wasn't without adversity. Another first-round exit in the playoffs. So let's take a look back at the offense and evaluate the top performers in 2025. Let's get into it.
Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
As promised, it's finally here. Player evaluations for 2025. So we're going to start off this series, or this two-part series, with the offense. We're going to talk about all the offensive players, what they did in the offseason, give them an overall evaluation, maybe a grade on what they did in 2025 and their performances. And we'll talk about exactly where they need to improve at as well. We'll get into that. So let's jump right into it, man. We can waste any time. So we're gonna start off, with the offense, and I'm here to tell you right now that I'm not doing the O-line. I'm not. It was a complete and utter object disaster in the absolute derailment of the Chargers season. The fact that we won 11 games is a flat out miracle in its own right. Credit to Justin Herbert, the coaching staff, especially Jesse Miller and the defense for holding it down and allowing this team to be productive and having a winning season despite the horrific O-line that the Chargers had in 2025. The worst O-line in the whole entire gamut. Now, if you look at the PFF ratings, the Raiders are below us. But PFF did something quirky where they added Joe Alt to the line, which made the Chargers slightly better in PFF ratings. But Joe Alt didn't play much at all this season. I think he played 6 games. So how can you qualify that with that him being a starter? But with the line that they had for the most of the entirety of the season, no Slater for the whole spiel, and no Alt for every game but 6, I would argue that it's got to be the worst, maybe the worst in history. But we're not going to cry about it. We're going to try to fix it in the offseason. And, we're going to be in our optimistic bag here going into the 2026 offseason. But let's talk about his offense, man. Justin Herbert, Amarion Hampton, Kamani Vidal, Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnson, Ladd McConkey, and Ronda Gaskin. We'll get into the rookies as well. We'll talk about them in the space and how they contributed to the offense in its entirety. But, let's start at the top. Like I said, we'll talk about the rookies, Trey Harris and Keandre Lambert-Smith with the rookie reserves as well. We'll get into those. But, of course, we want to start at the top. We want to start with the man, the myth, the legend, Justin Herbert. Played 16 games. They sat him out that 17 game against the Broncos because it was quote unquote meaningless, and the Chargers wanted to face off against the Patriots instead of having to face that Jaguars or Texans defense again. Didn't work out in either facet, so it really didn't matter. But yeah, that was their thing. So that's the reason why Justin Herbert only played 16 games. Bit of an Iron Man for the amount of hits Justin Herbert's taken over the entirety of his career. He is definitely a tough as nails type of guy. He really is. Can't say enough about him. He's definitely one of those most durable quarterbacks in the league. Just the punishment he's taken in the entirety of the 2025 season alone should and could knock out a lot of quarterbacks for a long stretch of time. I mean, hell, even Patrick Mahomes couldn't avoid, the barrage of pressure and the overturn of his O-line. He had an unfortunate ACL injury against us. So, credit to Justin Herbert for being a complete utter dog, man. Certified, put a stamp on it. He is that guy. He is that guy. So, for all those people that out there hating on him, just to be hating on him, just to have some type of thing, or narrative to talk about, right? It's completely and utterly unfounded. I mean, just to put it plain, this kid is a top 5 quarterback in the league. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. No ifs, ands, or buts. The only thing that you would put him down lower in the tier of the 5 is the fact that he hadn't won a playoff game or got to the Super Bowl, obviously. But outside of that, just sheer talent. I'm sure, majority of the league would knock down the Chargers' door if they ever were to make him available in trade. I mean, they were literally begging and pleading to not only give up all their draft capital, but asking them to expedite that rule where they can get 5 first rounders up in the near future for a trade instead of 3. So, yeah, this kid is a real deal. Again, one of the best, in that draft class of 2020. So getting into his stats, yeah, 16 games played. Remarkably, threw with 3,727 yards. He had 498 rushing yards, which almost rivaled the top guys on our running back slate. But 498 yards rushing, 26 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing, 13 interceptions. Unfortunately, one of the higher numbers he's had in his career. But rounded out with a 94.1 quarterback rating. And starting with the quarterback, there's a lot of pressure, a lot of scrutiny, a lot of praise. The old saying, you get too much of the credit, too much of the blame when things go up or down. But I'm here to tell you that without Justin Herbert in this particular rendition of 2025 for the Chargers, they will be picking top 10 in the upcoming draft. They would be. I would argue they're right up there with the Raiders. The team with a backup quarterback or any other quarterback that wasn't elite or of his caliber doesn't get this team to 11 wins. It just doesn't. Now, I'll give Harbaugh a lot of that credit as well because his stabilization of the culture is in large part due to why they ultimately got to 11 wins in back-to-back seasons, right? But it is definitely not without your elite quarterback, and it's Justin Herbert's play, man. Despite this fact that he had such a rough season, he was able to put up numbers, almost 4,000 yards passing, 26 touchdowns, 28 total. 13 picks, and I would argue a lot of those picks, I watched every single game that we played, and a lot of those interceptions were due to the pressure that he was constantly under. I'm sure he did not want to let the ball go in a certain spaces, certain facets, but he really had no choice. He was trying to make plays, and it just didn't go his way. In that space, quite a few tipped interceptions as well. I think probably half of his interceptions were footballs that were batted up in the air and caught by the defenders. So it wasn't directly thrown to defenders in the large space. But again, if you watch the tape, you know the deal. And I watch the tape, I watch the games, and I see, what the issue is. And it wasn't Justin Herbert for no stretch of that imagination. 13 picks or not. Again, a lot of those were forced because he was just under duress and trying to win games and trying to keep his team in it. So I definitely give him credit for that. And you got to get an A. You got to get an A for his effort, man. You do. Again, this is you can't say nothing about it. If he had a competent O-line, he probably would have thrown for 45, maybe 48,100 yards this year with the receiving core he had, but he just didn't have the time. Just at that time, and in a prehistoric offense that is Greg Roman's run-heavy scheme, which again with a bad O-line he couldn't run the ball either. It's amazing. It's remarkable the numbers he put up, even in that amount of mess and turmoil and adversity. So kudos to Justin Herbert. I have nothing bad to say about him. He did great in the season of dysfunction for sure, from an O-line perspective. So yeah, there you have it from the quarterback perspective. Running backs, it's a bit of a, I guess you can say, revolving door in a sense. When it comes down to the running back room, clearly Omarion Hampton and Najee Harris were the starters coming into the season, right? Omarion Hampton was brought upon slow in a sense, and Najee Harris was in there briefly, but he tore his Achilles early in the season, so we didn't see much of him. But yeah, it was definitely uh, a rough year for running backs, and this is yet another year not having at least one running back with 1,000 yards. If you combine the two between Kamani and Omarion, it was 1,000 yards if you were giving all the carries to one person, but that wasn't possible, obviously, because Kamani only played 10 games and Omarion only played 9. And it was largely due to the fact that Omarion got hurt early in the season, had to sit out, and then come back towards the end of the season. So Kamani took up the reins, and he did well for himself. But starting off with Omarion, with his 9 games out of his rookie campaign, 545 yards, again, against a bad O-line, 192 receiving yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 receiving touchdown. He only had 1 fumble. So yeah, it's a pretty solid season for only playing 9 games. Definitely should be something we can build on. And again, this is another call to action for the Chargers front office, man. You have to address the O-line and get a good unit up front, because between Mike McDaniel, the running back coach that we brought in from Miami, his former colleague on his staff in Miami, fixing the O-line has got to be priority 1. because if you can get a solid O line to block for this kid, because I've been singing Mario Hampton's praises for quite some time, and he is for all intents and purposes a generational talent. If you have the proper O line and scheme for him to run behind, what he did in North Carolina behind a shaky and up and down O line in North Carolina, it was amazing. Just look at this film. It was amazing. So I have no doubt that he can reproduce that in the league if he has the right personnel in front of him. So I would argue that if they fix the O line in this particular 2026 offseason, that he's going to rush for 1,000 yards easy, easy. No ifs ands or buts about it. A big, tough, strong power back that they can run and sneaky fast. 4.40 out of the combine. So yeah, they don't make 4.40 220-pound running backs every day. So I would say for sure that you need to build around him and being as your primary weapon in the backfield. So get into Kwame Vidal. I love what he did. I will say it again that I was an advocate of not cutting him when they did, and especially not in favor of for Hassan Haskins of all people. My God. But yes, and I was a Harbaugh guy and everything like that. But Kamani definitely earned the right to be on this team. He was drafted last year by this regime, so you should have gave him the leeway to be on this roster going forward, and not Hassan Haskins. And again, it panned out because he carried the weight for Mario Hampton when he got hurt. Like I said, he played 10 games, 646 yards rushing, 136 yards receiving, 3 touchdowns rushing, 1 receiving, total of 4, and he only had 1 fumble as well. So running backs didn't fumble a lot, that's for sure. Get him credit to that. They were not fumblers, obviously. That's not a problem, with these two backs. And this 2-1-2 combo is going to be something. You bring back Kamani because again, you put him on a practice squad, so you avoided his rookie deal. So you got to bring him back, and replace that deal. Obviously, at least a 2 to 3 year deal. He's been in the league 2 years now. At least give him 2 more. Let him, play out a rookie style contract if nothing else. And those two together, I wouldn't even bother with Najee Harris bringing him back at all, especially coming off an Achilles with his size and his power style of running. I wouldn't risk it. I would go all in on building on these two, and maybe go give me a third in the draft or free agency to add to the room. But even bring my guy Jared Patterson back as a third option. But these two for sure, because they're really good in pass pro, on top of the fact that they're really good runners. These two should be your future running back tandem. You know, you get the big time power and explosiveness of Mario Hampton, and the elusiveness and the one cut ability of Kamani. That's a good combo. And I think Mike McDaniel can make this tandem into what he had going on in Miami. So I'm looking forward to see what they can do. But yeah, for what they had and what they were dealing with, I would definitely give them a solid B performance for the both of them. Got a little bit of a pullback because they didn't play a full season, because of injury and or coming in to have to fill in to be the second back. But if they had the opportunity to make plays, they did. That's for sure. So I like the future when it comes to these two boys, and I really believe that these two young men, and I definitely believe that they're going to be a good 1-2 punch for the Chargers going forward. I can't wait to see what they do in 2026. Get into the receivers, starting off with the outside receivers, the X and the Y, X and the Z, I should say. I think the Y is the slot, if I have my offensive terminology right. But outside receivers and Quentin Johnson and Keenan Allen. Love the fact that we got Keenan Allen back. And I think that he kind of teased the idea in the interview over the past week and said he definitely wants to come back and play next season. And he don't want to play for anybody but the Chargers. So I'm loving that. I'm definitely on board and champion the idea of bringing him back. You can say what you want about Keenan Allen. He deserves his tire as a Charger, in my opinion. But and it's also a skill set that not many people have, that he has and always will possess. The ability to get open against tight man coverage. These corners, especially in the AFC, from Trey McDuffie to Surtain to Gonzalez, just to name a few, Stingley, they like to play tight, sticky man coverage and make it difficult for you to get the passes off to your receivers. And Keenan has the innate ability to get open. And I think having that on your team as a weapon, especially on third down where he's been money, they call him third and Keenan for a reason. So I think that having him in the room definitely is going to be a value asset. And he doesn't have to play every down. If you saw the film throughout the entirety of the season, a lot of times on first and second down when he wasn't even on the field, Trey Harris was in there for blocking. Quentin Johnson, Lad McConkey on the field. But on third down or second and long, certain cases when you need to go 11 personnel, 10 personnel, he was on the field and he was definitely a problem. You had to account for him. So bring him back on, a short money deal. It shouldn't cost you much. He wants to retire a Charger, so let's let him and bring him in and allow him to keep, I guess you can say, instructing and mentoring Quentin and Lad and Trey and Keandre, and just be an asset and just have that innate chemistry with Justin Herbert, man. I'm sure that'll make Justin Herbert way more comfortable knowing that 13 was going to be in the building for another season. So bring it back. Great season. He played 17 games. Again, didn't get hurt. I would argue outside of Quentin Johnson, our receiver room was pretty healthy. It was one of the more healthier rooms. You won a whole lot of games you're going into. You didn't feel like you gonna have at least 2 to 3 of your top receivers in every game. So he played 17 games. He even played the last game to get his incentives against the Broncos. He had 122 targets, 81 receptions, 777 yards, 4 receiving touchdowns. He had 2 fumbles, which is a little bit of I guess you could say an anomaly for him. But yeah, I mean, great solid season. Again, dealing with what you were dealing with and not playing a full complement of downs. But when he was targeted, he was money. He was money. Didn't have the whole lot left to be desired in that space. Now, the idea of the 81 receptions with 122 targets, that's a bit of a discrepancy. Almost 40, actually, it's over 40. There's a 40 catch difference in that target versus reception rate, which is interesting. Keenan not known for drops, so I wouldn't know how that accounted for the amount of catchable passes he actually had. That should probably break it down like that. How many of these passes were actually catchable? That's this, but a 40 difference in receptions to targets is interesting. But again, I don't doubt that Keenan is a short-handed guy. Don't doubt it at all. So let's bring him back, Chargers. Let's do it. So talking about Quentin Johnson next, 14 games played. He did miss a couple of games for injury. He didn't play the last game, so he did miss actually 2 games with injury. 85 targets, 51 receptions, 735 yards, and 8 receiving touchdowns. I think that was a team high, and only 1 fumble. So shouts out to him for having a great third year. And again, I was very critical and highly out on Quentin because of his drop issues. I never wanted to draft him because of that. I think that's always an issue. You draft a kid out of college who can't catch. That's a red flag for me. But I give him a lot of credit for rectifying that. And it's funny, it correlated with the idea of him getting that concussion in the preseason. After that concussion, it seemed like he kind of woke up in the sense that, if I'm going to get hit like that, I might as well catch the ball. So the fear or the pressure of not having, being scrutinized for his drops kind of went out the door. And he made some spectacular catches this year. Bar none. One-handed catches for touchdowns, contested catches, over the head, shoulder catches, a lot of hands catches, what I was criticizing him for in the past. So he had a great third year. I have no qualm about it. I'm a person that is, if I'm going to kick your back in about being bad in certain spaces, I'm going to give you credit when credit is due. So shouts out to Quentin. I want him to build on this and get better in his 4th year, and they're talking about the 5th year option coming up in May. Will they exercise it? I think that he gave them enough confidence they can, so, maybe he'll get a 5th year out of this for rookie deal. But yeah, shouts out to him for being better in year 3 than the first 2. Did really well for himself. So, I give him, man, Keenan a solid B grade for their efforts in 2025. Now getting to Lad and Trey. Lad played 16 games, no injuries for him. A lot of people say that he regressed in a sense from his rookie season, but I think a lot of plays into that. Now, again, 16 games played, 106 targets, 66 receptions. That's another 40 pass swing in a sense, which is interesting. But he has 789 yards. I think he has tops in the room. So he led the room in receiving yards. So is that really a down year? He was great in his rookie campaign, but he had a solid sophomore season, in my opinion. No fumbles, 6 receiving touchdowns. So it was pretty solid. Pretty solid. I think he would be second. That would make him second in receiving touchdowns on the team. So yeah, I think he had a pretty solid campaign. Again, with having those weapons, and adding Trey Harris and Keandre Levis-Smith to the room, and Aranda Gasson, who we'll talk about in a minute. Your targets share is going to go down a little bit, but I think they did a pretty good bang up job about spreading the ball around. So yeah, I think he had a solid campaign. No complaints there at all. I think Lad did what he needed to do. To get into Trey Harris, 17 games played. He even played the last game of the season. 30 receptions on 43 targets. That's a pretty solid number. Didn't have a whole lot of passes fly by his radar. Only had 324 yards receiving. He didn't get a whole lot of attention, being the fourth/fifth guy in certain cases, but one receiving touchdown and no fumbles. So pretty solid rookie season. I think it's something to build on. And I think they love the fact that he's a good blocker on top of everything else. So him adding to that and being a weapon in a run game on top of being a really good receiver is something to build on. So I think that he could maybe take up the mantle, take up the reins when Keenan is done. But them getting him in the second round of last year's draft really sounds like a hit. It really sounds like a hit, just to say the least. So I'm liking what they're doing there. So we'll get into his what he needs to probably work on and things of that nature. But just overall, just getting better at his route running, I think is probably is a critique I would have for him. Getting better at that, getting better at separation. And I would love to see what Mike McDaniel will have in store for as utilizing him in offense and what he think his skill set will be best give you his best options for his skill set in Mike McDaniel's offense. So we'll see how that rolls, man. But I think that he had a pretty solid campaign for his rookie year. All right, so getting to Arani Gaskins and Kendrick Smith. Now, Arande was a revelation in the live space once he finally got on the field. Was a healthy scratch for the first two games when they were going with Will Dissly and Tyler Conklin. What a waste. But once he got on the field, he was a weapon. His size, his stature, his speed, is definitely prototypical receiving tight end esque, and he definitely showed the people in the live space in the top part of the season. He can definitely be a threat and a weapon for Justin Herbert. So I'm liking what they're building on there. I would think he need to shore up some of those drops he had, some things he had his hands and bounced off, cost some interceptions, like I talked about earlier. So just shoring up those catches that he should make in that space. A couple of things he kind of let fly by his hands in the space. So, again, 15 games played, that's outside of two he missed. And 69 targets, 49 receptions, a 20-point discrepancy there, 664 yards, 3 receiving touchdowns, 1 fumble. Pretty solid. Pretty solid. Definitely a great campaign. I think that they found a tight end one. In my opinion, I think they're going to be really, in a good position to build upon him as being that number one. And they need to fill out the room behind them because they're probably going to get rid of Will Dissly Tyler Conklin in the offseason. At least I would. So yeah, I would argue that going with Arande as being your tight end one. Continue to work on his blocking skills and things of that nature, getting that really solid in the running game so he can be a weapon on both facets in the run game and the pass. But they even said, offseason, just from college to pros, it improved. So let's keep building on that and make him a complete tight end one. And I think Daryl, for a fifth round pick, that is definitely a steal if he can round out to that. And I think he can, being a second generation NFL player, his dad played. So yeah, I think that they definitely got some good on their hands and them getting him late in the draft. Just good pickup. Now, getting to Kendrick Smith. Now, he was mired with a lot of injuries throughout this season, up and down. Didn't get a lot of work. I think that, because of the emergence of Rondé, having Keenan back, having Quentin the lad, wasn't a whole lot of targets to go around when he did get in the offense. 10 games played, only got 5 receptions on 12 targets, 51 yards. He did have a receiving touchdown and no fumbles, so that's positive. But what I liked about him when he was healthy, them utilized him in the kick return game. I definitely think he could be an explosive asset in that space. He can add to that, and I think I like him better than Darius Davis back there because I just don't like Darius Davis's frame. In all honesty, excuse me, Darius Davis's frame scares me. Him being such slight a frame makes me concerned about him taking hits. Being slight of frame, when you take hits, a lot of times you fumble. I mean, it's just physics. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. Keandre Lambert being a bigger receiver, as fast or maybe faster, depending on who you're talking to. He can, because I believe he's a 4-3 guy as well. I think he's a better asset to return kicks and punts for the Chargers going forward. So I think him having that dual role, being a utility wide receiver and a punt return and kick return guy, I'm liking his skill set and bringing that to the team. So yeah, I think the future is bright for him. Just trying to incorporate him and utilize him and his speed. And I'm sure Mike McDaniel will probably have something for him because he loves speed guys. I'm sure he'll have something for him in his bag to unlock him in 2026. So we'll see. But yeah, man. So that's going to be something to build on and what to look forward to in 2026, man. But overall, like I said, I'm not talking about the O line. The worst in NFL history. Enough said. Bradley Bozeman, Zion Johnson, Mekhi Becton all need to go. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We talk about the skill guys. We're not going to talk about the O line. It's no point. They were abysmal. Just to put it plain, they were abysmal. I mean, it's nothing more to say, nothing less to say. They were just bad all the way around. I can't echo that any further. They were just bad in all spaces. But yeah, so hopefully we'll move on for that interior online and get a new regime in here in 2026 that will unlock our offensive players, and we have a much better offensive performance going into 2026 campaign. And hopefully we can compete for the Super Bowl. So we'll see how things shake out. But that was the offense. So we're gonna get into the defense. We're gonna drop this. We're dropping this on a Wednesday. So I'm thinking look for either Friday or Monday. We'll see. Friday's a little bit weird day for YouTube in the space. So I might wait till Monday to drop this. We get better results on that space. So I might do that. So look for Friday. If not, I'll definitely drop it Monday for the defense, and we'll evaluate those guys and give you my opinion on that. And then we'll get into talking to my draft wish list and my what they should do with free agency, how much money they should spend, and things of that nature. We're gonna cover all that. And then the combine will be right around the corner. And I'll give you my wish list for combine or in my combine review. So got a lot to cover, man. The NFL never sleeps. This is content space, this is content time. We're gonna break it all down and what the Chargers should be leaning towards in free agency and the draft. So we're gonna get it all done, man. But as always, if you're looking for the Electric Shock Podcast in any space, we're on YouTube. Please hit the subscribe button to support our podcast movement. Hit us up on all social medias if you have questions about Chargers news. We can be found on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Gmail. The handle is Electric Shock Pod on all platforms. So get at us for all things Chargers. That's Electric Shock Pod with no K and shock. So check us out, hit us up, and you got to do one thing and one thing well. You always got to remember to boat up.